Uh, okay, so hello everyone. Welcome to this session of Digital Medicine by Jo Sir. It is a privilege to welcome him here today on this virtual platform. He's a globally respected voice in bioethics and healthcare crisis and ethics, and currently the vice chair and chair of ethics at the Global Health and Quality Alliance. In this role, he leads critical conversations shaping ethical standards, health policy, and responsible innovation across healthcare systems worldwide. Alongside his leadership at GHQA, Mr. J brings decades of experience spanning academic medicine, public health, and healthcare institutions, with affiliations including Yale University, Cornell University, NYU, and the US Department of Defense. His work consistently bridges ethical theory with real world healthcare decision making. At the heart of his career is a deep commitment to ensuring that quality, equity, and ethics remain central to global health progress. So, we are truly honored to have you here, sir, on this platform. Over to you to start with the session.
All right, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Um, so today's topic is artificial intelligence in medicine and governance. So before we begin, let me just tell you what this talk is not. It's not a technical presentation about algorithms. I wouldn't know how to do that. This talk is also not about whether AI is good or bad. This presentation is about responsibility. It's about where responsibility goes when AI shapes clinical decisions. So with that in mind, most conversations about AI, they start in one of two places. So most conversations about AI falls into two familiar stories. One story is AI will fix our problems. It will be faster, more accurate, and more consistent. The other story says AI is dangerous. It will introduce bias, opacity, and loss of judgment. It will, hinder us from thinking. Now, if either of those sounds familiar, that's because most of us have heard both of them, right? So, quick show of hands. You can use one of those emojis. How many of you have heard both of these claims in your own institution? AI is dangerous or AI is great? All right, just one. All right, all right. But all right, so let's move on here. So let's start with an optimistic version of this story. Like in medicine, um, the promise is like improved accuracy, right? Better standardization and efficiency gains. So most clinicians will not argue with this. The AI is helpful. The ethical issue is not whether these gains exist, but the issue is what happens when performance starts to feel like more permission. Okay, so that's the optimistic story. Um, I'm just setting this up. So now the critical story. People worry about black boxes, biased data, erosion of clinical judgment. They're also justified. So here the concern is opacity, bias, erosion of judgment. Again, these concerns are real, and many of you have lived them, right? So the ethical mistake happens when harm gets described as something the technology did, rather than asking how institutions chose to design and deploy it. So I don't know if you're seeing where I'm going with this. So the split, this AI is good, AI is bad, the split persists because both stories have evidence behind them. AI does improve performance, that's true, and AI does cause harm. So attention says, attention stays on technology, while governance quietly stays in the background. So that's the issue we're discussing today. Okay, who is responsible when AI takes over? So this brings us to the question that often goes unasked. When AI mediates judgment, where does responsibility actually reside? Okay, not in theory, but in practice. Now, medicine makes this problem visible. The clinical work already requires justification, accountability, and trust. So AI does not remove those obligations. It tests whether institutions protect them. So both stories, optimistic and critical, share one error. They assign moral significance to the system itself. When that happens, institutions recede from the view. So we often say things like, the system decided, or the algorithm flagged the case. So we've heard this. We kind of do this in meetings, right? But the systems do not choose goals. Institutions do. So in a complex system, responsibility tends to collapse at the front line, right? So when something goes wrong, blame falls on the person closest to the patient, even when that person had little control over the system design or system itself, or how the system is used, or even the choice of that particular system. So this is sometimes called a crumple zone. It's like a car, right? If you have a accident, the front bumper, it crumples so that it can protect passengers. So the idea is blame goes to whoever is in the front line. So the core or the leadership is protected. But it's not the frontline people who's deciding what kind of AI system or whether to use AI system. But something goes wrong, it's always the clinician's mistake or clinician's fault, so that leadership or the system is protected. So automation bias is often framed as human weakness. But if you look at the conditions, like time pressure, workflow design, organizational incentives, so in that environment, deferring to system output is rational. That makes this governance issue not a character flaw. So here's a shift. Okay. AI is not a moral agent. It reflects the institutional values. Okay. Now think about that, right? So institution decides to use certain type of AI to make clinical decisions. So AI doesn't make the decision by itself. AI is a thing, right? It doesn't make it's not a moral agent. It functions as a mirror, right? So let me show you what I mean. So this is a little humor. I include this because it captures something many of us have seen, right? There's often a lot of excitement and urgency around AI. So even when we are not entirely sure what we want to do with it, at least currently, or who's responsible once it is in place. So the reason this speaks to us that it feels familiar. So let me walk through this sort of this diagram. It looks complex, but if you look at the left side, these are the institutional inputs, organizational priorities, incentives, rules, professional norms. This is not technology. These are choices institutions already make. Now, the center column, this is where AI sits. The objectives we give it, the data we allow it to use, and how we integrate it into workflows. So AI does not invent these things, it operationalizes them. Now, on the right side, okay, these are the outcomes, patterns of decisions, who gets prioritized, who gets delayed, how accountability ends up being distributed, and the ethical consequences that follow. Now, at the bottom, um, this loop is the ethical work, the oversight, the revision, the responsibility reassignment. So if this loop is weak or just symbolic, the system keeps producing the same outcomes, no matter how accurate it is. Right? So this is why I say AI does not replace ethical responsibility. It shows whether institutions are willing to carry it. So what goes in gets scaled. Institutional priorities go in, operational outcomes come out. So if the reflection looks troubling, the source is upstream. It's not the AI. So not all AI systems do the same thing. Okay. Some are built to retrieve information. They search and surface content. Others are built to interact. They talk, they respond, um, and feel relational. So the difference really matters. Different types of AI does different things. So when a system starts to feel relational, people begin to expect care, even when none is actually being provided. So we heard the news about this lawsuit where someone took their own life because AI told them to do so, right? Now, this lawsuit is not saying the AI caused the suicide, right? It is saying the design created a foreseeable risk. That risk comes from simulated empathy without responsibility and engagement without safeguards we expect in clinical settings. So this is what I mean by AI as a moral mirror. Different systems reflect different institutional choices, and those choices carry certain responsibility. So in medicine, the mirror often reveals the same tensions. Efficiency gets prioritized, justification gets compressed, responsibility becomes misaligned. Now, this does not require bad intent. It follows from design under pressure. Now, the mirror can also reflect strength, clear oversight, share responsibility, things like decisions that remain open to challenge. Now, notice this is a governance work, not technical work. So this structure extends beyond healthcare, right? Public benefits, regulatory enforcement, administrative decisions. The ethical question stays the same. Who designs the pathway and who answers for its outcomes? So things like transparency, explainability, and bias bias mitigation, they matter, but none of them resolve responsibility on their own. So what does it require from the institutions? Um, Explicit responsibility from institutional perspective, procedural contestability, they need to be open, and continuous oversight. So institution has to be responsible and just simple way of saying. So the core claim is very simple here. Artificial intelligence exposes moral architecture. Institutions determine ethical outcomes. So this is whatever the institution allows um, will come out on the other side as an outcome. So AI now forces a confrontation. Institutions choose reform or denial. So again, artificial intelligence does not replace ethical responsibility. It reveals whether institutions are willing to carry it. Right, that's what I have prepared. Any thoughts or questions?
Hey Jay.
Hey, Dan, how are you?
Well, how are you? Thank you for
I'm okay.
all of this is great information. We're kind of at like a intersection of AI and clinical decision making.
Sure.
Do you have any recommendations for like medical executive boards or oversight, from a consultant standpoint when customers ask us about deploying AI, and we do that here at an organization. Like,
Yeah.
what should we, kind of consider in the forefront for them to have these decisions? Because the way we try to use our AI is not in a clinical decision making. It's more of a, abstraction or a scribe type of function. We're not asking it to like make decisions for us, but as clinicians come out, we try to get that clear delineation. Is there any recommendations you can say for them to, have those conversations about liability and use?
Um, well, if I have that problem, I guess I didn't have to have this presentation, but thank you for the question. I
Mhm.
think, I think like right now, just as I try to be humorous here, like people or institutions or the leadership, we want to deploy AI. Like you want to do
Hmm.
it right now because it's the future, and it is true. But I think we need to take time to look into what types of AI are we bringing in, because just AI is not the same as you well know,
Hmm.
and also what kind of the predictable outcome that's going to come out of this, right? So although we're not asking certain AIs to make all the decisions, human responsibility is there, but it's what institutions allow, right? So, like in our institution, they are telling us to use AI, utilize AI in every day, in a clinical setting, and this is how you use this to, talk to your patients and family members, and if you have a hard time describing difficult, clinical cases, then you know tell it, tell it to AI, and it will tell you how to say it in a nice way. I think it's so you're creating that. I mean, in a best sense of the word, you're creating that false empathy from your
Hmm.
clinician, and clinicians may lack, um, I guess, skills to do so. So I feel like this particular institution is saying that, hey, this is a fix, right? This is a quick fix, again, in a positive way, that it can help you solve some of the problems. It's like it will supplement your weakness per se as a clinician because you're good at doing clinical work, but you don't know how to talk to people. So use this AI. But institution chose to do that, right? Clinicians may have asked
Hmm.
for it. I'm not sure, but um,
Yeah.
so I think the powers that be need to really think about what, like, you're going down the road a certain direction, and where is it going to take us, right? I think we need to take time to think about that before we implement anything. That we permit, certain system to be used in our institutions. So I don't know if that's a solution, but
Yeah.
think we need to take time. I mean, what do you think? I mean, you're
No, I agree. I think taking the time to take the time is really important. It's saying, hey, we've identified the issue here. I agree with you. I think having the conversation of like what specific use you're going to use AI for. But
Mhm.
I don't think what we talk about is the outcome, the expected outcome. Because generally
Right.
for us, it's just like the node's getting created or this is going to be done. But we're not at a trust point now, so we always have people audit our AI audits as
Mhm.
well, which is kind of, redundancy in a way. But um, I think just that clear specificity of what it will be used for, and I don't think we also take liability and responsibility to actually like pointing it out to people, right? Medical Economics came out with a whole article about AI and liability, and the outcome is it's everyone. But how do you know it's everyone unless you have the conversation?
Exactly. Yeah.
So,
And I have a question for you because you're in the thick of this. So a lot of times we blame the programmers, and it's a bias came from the person. But that kind of leaves the institution who sort of allow or request that this to be done certain way.
mhm.
And the clinicians sort of out in the ditch, right? And the clinicians made the mistake. Well, they didn't know this was being deployed, or they have no choice but to use it. Or even before the clinicians get see the patients, they have this data that came out of, I guess, certain decision-making AIs who already made certain decisions. They give you certain um, potential outcomes, and you're basically bringing that data to the patient. And then either if something does not go well, either clinicians get blamed or they blame the programmer, and the institutions are like, okay, well, you're fired, and that's the end of it, right? I mean, is
Yeah.
that too simplistic, or what do you think? I mean,
No, no, I think there's because we're on the development side of things, and what we've
Mhm.
done is we put safeguards in. So correct. Like we want to use this AI tool to deploy it and make it usable. But you're still a clinician. You're still the one signing this note or confirming that this happens because the liability is on their license, right? They treated this patient.
Mhm.
So, even with the scribe, and that's kind of the way I try to use a lot of AI because it's abstraction, even ambient, right? Where you're listening to the conversation, it still takes that conversation, puts it into text, and then that text gets run through to make a note. Or say what happened during that encounter. But it's still
Mhm.
up to the clinician, because we can put safeguards in to like make sure that every field that is written in the note, if you're doing your chief complaint, that it actually is only the chief complaint, but the clinician
Sure.
still needs to review that. So that's
Yeah.
kind of how we put our own
Mm.
individual safeguards in is one, making sure the software only does what it's supposed to, and then also ensuring that the provider knows before they sign the note that it's up to them to confirm the note content's correct, any codings there is correct, any billing supplementations also intact, but it's up to them.
So, like in a practical setting, though, they're like, "Wow, it's taking so much time. I used to just write things down.
Hmm.
Now, AI takes it. Now I have to sit down and read it to make sure. They're like, I'm spending like twice or three times more
Yeah.
energy in this. Like, I don't like it. Is one side, right?
Hmm.
Um, but also, like, I'm also in this scenario that you just described, or we're just talking about. Um, the whole idea of, from ethical side, informed consent, right? Traditionally, patient is consenting to certain treatment options to an agent, right? It's an individual agent. It's your doctor, it's your clinician. Now AI gets involved, and doctor basically is working, although yes, it's their clinical responsibility. They're trusting whatever the output they received, and then it's been shared into this cyberspace. And what is patient consenting to? Like a lot of times they don't even say, "Oh, there's a scribe in the room," or whatever, there's ambient. Like, what if I don't want it? Well, then you need to leave. Like it's like when you buy a phone, like you have to agree to it, otherwise you can't use it.
Hmm.
So in clinical setting, it becomes very similar. Check this box, and you don't check the box, then find another doctor or whatever, right? So you really have no choice but to agree to it, and that changes the idea of informed consent, right? We're kind of forced to do it. Nobody reads all the small prints. I understand that, but so that clinician responsibility, now the patients, the clients are involved. So I again, I, it gets very complex, and I guess my concern is, um, what does the institution, the healthcare system, or the insurance company, the ones that hire these clinicians and the engineers and the programmers, what are they willing to, again, like I think you said, it's about, are we going to have more? It's about economics at the end of the day. It's about business. I think it should be a little more than that, obviously. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I think the bottom line in healthcare is the bottom line. Like, can
yeah,
can I provide a service for a profit enough to break even and, provide good in the community, which is really kind of what we're hoping for, right? I mean,
sure.
but,
It's reality. Yeah.
again, the profit is driven. I think for this, it's more of an efficiency for providers, right? You
Hmm.
can't give
Hmm.
providers more than 8 hours a day, but
Right.
you can give them tools to improve their efficiency so they're able to see those patients and get their documentation done, which is a very heavy burden on providers, which is also driving providers out of the organizations. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a tool, but it needs to be monitored and governed more
Yeah.
so. And I think have more discussions about it. So Jay, this is really why I appreciate you putting that together. But that really helps with a lot
Yeah,
of
I
the
love,
questions.
yeah, I'd love to have a conversation, at some point with you too.
Sure. All right. Thank you,
All
Jay.
right. Sure. Thank you. Any other thoughts or anything you disagree with, or a different take on this? Or let me actually stop sharing here.
I think so. We do not have any more questions. So if
Sure.
you allow me, I'll just wrap the session up.
Okay.
So indeed, so I learned a lot of things from you, starting on from how inputs are necessary, but with all the ethics involved. And we'll make sure in our future endeavors also to focus more on ethics rather just making the profits out of any kind of business or any service we provide. So thank you so much for your time, sir. We appreciate it. And thank you everyone for joining in for the session.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thanks, Jay.